You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Ric Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And I am your host, Ric Franzi. We have a great show planned for you today, and that's because our guest, James Muraca, who is the CEO of Enersponse, is going to be talking not only about this firm, but also his penchant for early stage companies and his experience with that. So James, welcome to the program today.
Thank you for having me, CTO, but thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So you've been with Enersponse for a little over 8 months now. I'm wondering, what was the original motivation for you to join this firm?
Sure. So the company's been around for a number of years before that, and I was working closely with our CEO, James McPhail, at another startup, and we're involved in the energy space. We find ways for sites to save energy, and I guess what drew me to Enersponse was being able to obviously save energy and make an impact on things like climate change, save and make customers money, but do that in a technological, automated sense. So being in the technology, CTO, building out a platform that allowed us to connect to customers and automate load shift and savings, really bridging, clean and topical things as well as technology today. Definitely drew me in.
So in your relationship with the firm and now being with them for coming on a year, any pivots in the business, any lessons learned from that time?
Absolutely. So to date, we're a completely bootstrapped company startup. This time last year, we had 3 employees, and now we're at mid-20s. So that alone, last year has been a huge learning curve, personally, professionally, of ramping up teams and expanding markets across the country and so on. Pivots, we've had a definitely a good vision and idea from day one, having been in and around the industry and understanding the pain points. But definitely, as you dig into customer needs, working with larger customers, working with more customers, more utilities across the country, you really get into what's that core need of how can I save energy, or what is that technical connection with a partner or a customer, and from there definitely guiding the roadmap or guiding which market we expand to next, or which person or company should we partner with next. No major pivots, but absolutely keeping an eye on our quarterly or yearly roadmaps, revenue targets, hiring plans has been a huge learning curve for myself.
So James, you started to describe the firm, but maybe we could just spend a little bit of time and ask you to go a little deeper on what it is exactly Enersponse does. What's the service and benefit?
Sure. So Enersponse started life as a demand response aggregator about 5 to 6 years ago. And demand response is on the saving energy side. So Orange County podcast here, major utility being Southern California Edison. SCE would have a bucket of money to either build new power plants to keep up with people and businesses coming into the area, or they can use that money to pay customers to shut down their heating and cooling or pumping loads and save energy. So we're on the save energy side. We take positions in the market, or we partner with SCE to go out and find customers who can shut down their load when SCE or when the grid needs it most. So this is at high expensive price points within the market. It could be at 7 o'clock at night, everybody's come home and turned on their AC. And instead of preventing a blackout, we try and have controlled shutdowns of specific sites, a surgical shutdown, if you will, and ultimately pay the customer to help the grid stability in that way.
And why can't SCE or other utilities do this without you?
Yeah, so there's different market constructs. So whether we are typically how demand response or energy programs had run over the last, say, 15 years in California and across the country, has been physically calling up locations. Seriously, it's calling large pumping loads or manufacturing facilities and saying, "Hey, Joe, can you please shut down this site?" But people, have to walk around and adjust the thermostat and turn things off. With the advent of technology today, we can connect to thermostats, we can connect to pumping sites, we can, and so on. We can turn all these things off in a controlled manner. So companies like SCE work with us we're on the hook. We go out and find those loads. We automate the loads. We work with our customers, your local hardware store, your local makeup store, to understand what can they shut down at the site. So I can give 2 degrees of temperature adjustment and not just shut down the store and lose my fridges and freezers at a supermarket. You want to make sure that things are still comfortable and not stale.
So it sounds a little bit like the IoT aspect of what you do it has been a kind of enabling technology for you and for Enersponse.
Absolutely. So, it was a very big driver for us to have set up our platform from day one. So today we have about 20,000 locations across the country connected to our platform. And as I said, these are small sites, from a local fast food outlet, a supermarket, all the way up to a massive city and pumping water district, industrial loads. And being able to use IoT, the cloud connected things, and the cost effectiveness of integrating software rather than phone calls or installing hardware or other expensive metering on site has allowed us to expand rapidly over the past year and 2 years in particular, and gain, massive penetration across different utility markets from New York and into California and Texas and various other regions, all from the comfort of an office in Costa Mesa, Orange County.
So, James, I know you're the CTO, but I'm wondering, because as you explain your business model, I see you actually have 2 clients. One is the specific utility and partnering with them, and then 2 are their customers and getting them to buy into the value proposition. So from your experience and your firm's experience, can you share a little bit about how you go to market? Do you in each various market, because U.S. is a large country and there's a lot of utilities that are dropped around the country. So
sure, demand response is a very interesting sales and business model, because we're taking money or receiving money from the utility to pay our customer, the hardware store. We're not asking people to pay us as such, and so from that perspective, it's a really great business to be in, because it's a quick win to get into the door. Every utility is different, right? Southern California is different to Con Ed in New York, is different to, Southern Company or so on in Georgia. And overlaying technology. So number one, each of those utilities, we're bridging into our platform to try and automate what that message is. 2 p.m., please shut down your supermarket is different from 2 p.m., shut down your pumping station. And then connecting that to a national customer or a mid-market regional customer, to be able to, we work with those customers at the other end, that if typically a utility will say we need a 6 hours of curtailment of energy savings, we might bucket and slice up that event into 6 one-hour events, so that a makeup store participates the first hour and the hardware store in the second and third hour, and so on. So we're taking what is typically being a very aggressive energy saving model from utilities and overlaying, as you said, IoT and technology to try to make it palatable for new customers or controlled load that's out there today.
So how do you, without getting into confidentials of your income statement, but how does Enersponse make money and profit?
Sure. I mean, there's no secret that from a demand response perspective, we're on the hook for some load from a utility. There's a rev share type agreement that typically comes with the customer at the other side. But then, there's different other models depending on if we're bidding it into the market. If there's other platform, we license out our platform to other aggregators or other control providers out there. So we've developed a lot of good core IP from a technology perspective that others would find valuable in modules or other areas. And we license that. We have strong partnerships with Samsung SmartThings, for example, or other control providers to provide them this utility connection rather than them build it themselves. We license what we have today.
So you said earlier in the interview, the company's gone from 3 or so employees a year ago to, I think you said 30. Is that?
Almost 30. We're getting there.
So something must be working in the business model for you all to be comfortable bringing on that level of payroll. What is it that's changed in a year that's enabled that type of growth from a headcount perspective?
Either something's changed or we're all crazy. No, so I mean, it's just from all of us as a core management team and I guess a founding team to, have gone from a side project, a weekend project, to really committing to wanting to do this both, from an interest perspective, from a, financial comfort perspective, but from I guess as a clean and green perspective as well, of wanting to make a difference for, our kids and grandkids too. And having that, I guess, moral view and financial view that allows us to throw ourselves into the company a year or so ago, full time, and then work backwards. What does that mean? We need an energy markets person. We need more accounts and sales. So then developing our sales channels to a point where we're comfortable to increase. It obviously comes with its challenges. Absolutely, we work long hours. For a long time, we haven't slept or had weekends and things like that. And that's obviously the risks of being in a small startup, but as well, personally love doing it. And happy to take on those challenges.
It's really interesting because the business that you described, this entrepreneurial spirited business, then is getting married to maybe some of the most regulated utilities who aren't seen for being innovative, at least historically. And so I'm wondering how those two cultures get to mesh between where you guys are and how your clients historically have operated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a big picture perspective, right, we've just come through COVID and we're working in between the most essential and regulated businesses, right? The electricity company and a water company, the electricity company and a supermarket. And these are the most essential businesses. And while at a top level, these are regulated and obviously for a reason, once you actually, similar to chatting to your customers and finding that product market fit, once you chat to the utility or the energy managers at a supermarket or whatever it is, they have their pain points and understand, hey, if you use this process this way, if you connect to us this way, if you send the message to us this way, then we're able to enact change at a store or a location in a really non-disruptive way. We do fall, in a lot of regulatory periods. Every utility has deadlines, whether it's monthly or yearly. There's, submissions that we have to make to check all the boxes and settle and so on at the start or end of a program year. But, innovation then comes from, can I do that in a more automated sense? Can I take those, again, phone calls and turn them into IoT type signals? Can I take the settlements and bulk upload and do the measurement and verification with the utility in a way that other people haven't done that before? So trying to find, the process innovation is also a big part of working in this business.
It's interesting. Why can't the utilities provide the level of electricity that's required by their clients at this point?
I mean, there's different reasons, right? I don't think it's a nefarious thing that they're trying to, enact power outages, because typically their employees obviously live in their areas too. But generally, there's different challenges. Texas last year was a really great example.
Yes.
It was a perfect storm, to use the pun there, but of Hurricane Uri came in, and while Texas has been going to a much more renewable energy base load, they had very cold temperatures, which froze gas lines and water lines, which means the gas station was off. And the wind, the temperatures were so cold that the wind generation was frozen, and there was no clouds, so there was no solar. So there are all these edge cases where, again, we're on the save energy side. So we have limited capacity of our grid. We planned as much as we could, and in some instances you have a retrospective and we can plan better. But we're, as Enersponse, being on the save energy side, do our little bit to try and help and make use of the best use of the resources that are available to the grid at any time.
So you have an entrepreneurial spirit, looking back, getting to know you a little bit better, seeing kind of companies that you've been interested in working with. You've worked in a number of startups. Tell me and the audience, from your perspective, what's the attraction of these early stage companies for you?
I think the attraction is both the detraction and disappointment as well. All the areas, personally, I'm a very generalist person. I started life as an engineer, but I have a general interest in electronics and software and, how that relates to, people and what's the consumer behavior at the other side of it. I enjoy then going, because of that, it leads into a sales conversation and account management, and then looping that through to a design spec. And, having such a varied day and a very career path is, for me, the attraction of doing a little bit of everything. From now going from an engineering as a startup to a CTO, it's always the goal of, can I do this? Can we do this? Can we grow from 3 people to 23 and sustain, a business good enough to support 23 families? Can we, fit within this regulatory and find the whole, as I was saying before, in that strict regulatory framework to expand the customer base? All of those things is very challenging as well. From a startup, you can have your best conversation in the morning and your worst conversation in the afternoon. And there's definitely, whether it's a personal problem, but, enjoying that roller coaster as well is by far the biggest challenge. And I think as well, success to get to where we are today.
So I can't help but notice a slight accent in your voice. Hope you don't mind me picking up on that. But I'm wondering, how long have you been in the States, and how long have you been in Orange County in particular?
Yep. So I'm Australian, born in Australia. Came to Orange County, Newport Beach, almost 6 years ago with my wife. She's also Australian. For another company at the time who I was working with, Zen. We made thermostats for heating cooling systems. Mm-hmm. But yeah, always lived in Orange County for that period of time. And it's a really good balance of life, being able to have access to head offices of head companies, Taco Bell and, all these great companies are headquartered in Orange County. But at the end of the day, I can, behind me is the surfboard. I don't use it very much now. I'm not very good, but you can go for a surf before and after work and still have a fulfilling engineering career as well, which is great.
So from one person's perspective, from your perspective, how is your role, business, early stage companies, are there differences from what you've observed and lived, having done that in Australia and now here for the past 5 years in the States?
Definitely, I think from a goals and, personal perspective, professional perspective, I guess, the market size of the US is huge. Every customer site number has an extra zero on the end. Every deal size, every number of users is much bigger. South Australia is, I think, our third most populous state, in Australia has 1.2 or 1.5 gigawatts of total energy. Right. Enersponse as a platform has 2 to 3 gigawatts of load under management, and that's just with a few national accounts across those 20,000 sites. So to be in a startup that has, in essence, more connected load than an entire state of Australia is amazing. Particularly to be in California and work in Texas and other areas where it really is at the forefront of energy conservation or bridging technologies to improve the reliability of the grid. I think is a great career move personally for one day if I do return back to Australia.
So I can't help but also pick up on the passion from which you talk about what you're doing at Enersponse. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective on the C-suite as a CTO, what's tomorrow hold for your firm? What's the vision for the future?
Sure. I mean, it's once you're connected, always, as I said before, connecting to the customer and talking to the customer, understanding their pain points. And a little bit of that is, different technology paths and opening up new programs and energy saving constructs. But as well, just from a business perspective, trying to grow our our bottom line and doing that in either turning on more sites, expanding new programs into different states, connecting to different utilities, further automation, so it makes all of our lives easier as we get bigger. So there's definitely external and customer facing things, as well as those internal. We're growing as a startup. We need to, improve our processes and so on. So there's definitely a lot of excitement in those things.
Well, I have appreciated you giving a piece of your time, because I sense how busy you are and the demands that are on your time. If someone would like to connect with you directly or learn more about Enersponse, how do they connect with you and find out more about your firm?
Sure. Enersponse.com, or just on my LinkedIn as well. James Muraca at LinkedIn. And happy to answer any questions or chat to anyone who's interested.
Well, I've enjoyed learning a little bit about what it is that is your value proposition, and I appreciate what your firm is doing to help save energy and create a more efficient culture here in the United States. Appreciate your time today. Yeah,
thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me.
And I'd like to thank the audience. You've been a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. James's episode was episode number 1358. If you're an Orange County entrepreneur and you'd like to tell your story, then connect with me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me as Ric Franzi, or visit my website, ricfranzi.com, and we can have a chat and possibly get you on a future episode. But until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.